Okay, there you go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'll go ahead and call to order this hearing of December 14th, 2023 in the matter of case file Z0148-23 and a request for approval of an event facility. My name is Joe Turner. I am the county's hearings officer. This is a continued hearing from October 12th, 2023, and I don't think I did my full intro at that one because the applicant had requested a continuance, so I'll go ahead and do that now. I'll begin with some brief remarks and a summary of the process that will follow so everyone understands how you can participate in the hearing. I start by saying I'm not a county employee. I'm licensed as an attorney and trained as a planner. I serve under contract to the Board of Commissioners. I say that so you know you're getting a somewhat independent review of the application before me today. My role as the hearings officer is to conduct the hearing and make decisions about certain land use matters in Clackamas County. In making those decisions, I'm required to apply the county's existing laws. I am not a policymaker. I don't have the authority to vary from or change the laws. If you think that the laws need to be changed, you can work with Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to do that. But state law requires that this application be judged based on the laws in effect when the application was filed. As a hearings officer, I'm to provide an unbiased decision maker. I believe I am unbiased with regard to the application before me today. I have not had any pre-hearing contact with any of the parties regarding the substance of the application, and I don't have any interest in the subject property or any of the surrounding properties. But you have the right to challenge my impartiality, to argue that I'm biased in one way or another, and you can do that when it's your opportunity to testify. The procedure will follow. I will start by asking staff to summarize their staff report and their addendum to the staff report, both of which are available on the county's website. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to present their proposal and respond to the staff report, as well as the testimony that was offered at the prior hearing. Then if anybody else wants to testify in support of the application, they may do so. And then anyone who wants to testify, sorry about that. Let me get this off. Anybody who wants to testify in opposition or with questions or concerns may do so. That should cover everybody who wants to say something about the application. You'll fall into one of those categories. Once the public has everyone has had initial opportunity to testify, I will close the record for, or excuse me, close the hearing testimony for the public. Any additional testimony, response testimony is limited to staff and the applicant. If staff's and applicant's response includes any new evidence, I will give everyone a chance to respond to the new evidence. Otherwise, I will close the hearing and announce what I'm going to do. Generally, I will issue a written decision within about 2 weeks after the close of the public record. I'll send my decision to the county. The county will send it to parties of record, so anybody who testifies orally or in writing before the close of the record will be sure and receive a copy of my decision when it's issued. If you decide you don't want to testify, but you want to receive a copy of my decision, you could contact staff and ask to be put on the mailing list. So make sure you'll get a copy when my decision when it's issued. Anyone with an interest in this application may offer relevant oral or written testimony, but testimony should be relevant to the applicable approval criteria, which are set out in the staff report. Also, please don't repeat testimony offered by yourself or earlier witnesses. I take good notes and I can review the recording of the hearing if I missed anything. Repeating your testimony doesn't make your case any stronger. This is not a popularity contest. Whether everyone loves it or everybody hates it is not an issue I get to consider. The only issue before me is whether the application does or does not comply with the applicable approval criteria. However, it is important that you make your best case to me. All parties make their best case to me. My decisions are final for purposes of the county, but may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, or LUBA. However, LUBA generally will not allow new testimony and evidence on appeal. They'll decide any appeal based on the record before me. So if you feel it's important that myself or any future decision maker know something about this application, you need to make sure it gets into the record before me. If you feel you need more time to prepare, you can ask me to hold the record open or to continue the hearing. If I hold the record open, you'll have an opportunity to submit additional written testimony and evidence before I make a decision. If I continue the hearing, as we did already, we can come back and do this at a later date. But if anybody wants me to hold the record open or continue the hearing, they must make that request before the close of the hearing today. However, whether or not the hearing is continued or the record is held open for any other purpose, state law requires that I hold the record open for an additional week for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. The applicant can waive that right if they choose, but as I noted, if anybody else wants me to hold the record open or continue the hearing, you must make that request before the close of the hearing today. Also, my decision must comply with state law that requires that I issue a final written decision in this case within 150 days after the application was filed. So there's some limit to how long I can continue the hearing or hold the record open unless the applicant agrees to extend that clock, which they have to some extent already. When you testify, please begin by stating your name and your full mailing address. Please spell your last name so I get it right, because not everybody's full name appears on my screen. And if you represent someone else, please say so. That concludes my hearing intro. Oh, and staff will do the technical issues of how you can indicate if you want to testify, etc. So I'll have Ms. Lord do that, and then we'll proceed with the hearing.
Great, thank you. This public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. For attendees on PC and iPad, you will have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar at either the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on your device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who's speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you've provided your testimony, your microphone will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to provide additional written testimony, you can email that written testimony to myself at mlord@clackamas.us, or you can mail it to the Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division at 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, 97045. My contact email address is also available on the webpage where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address, either by email to me at mlord@clackamas.us or by entering it into the Zoom chat function during the hearing.
Thank you. And if you want to go ahead and summarize your staff report and addendum.
Certainly, yes. I do have a PowerPoint that I'll share with us. Let me just see.
And after the hearing, can you include that as an exhibit in the record, please?
I will, yes, of course. If I move my PowerPoint to a different screen, are we still seeing the PowerPoint?
So far.
Okay, I'll go with it then, thank you. As Mr. Turner mentioned earlier, this is a continued hearing from October 12th. This is a conditional use permit for a home occupation to host events. My contact information is here on the screen, mlord@clackamas.us, if you need to send me an email with written testimony or a request to receive the hearings officer's decision. My name is Melissa Lord. I'm a planner representing the Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division. With regards to this land use application, file Z0148-23. The application itself is, like I mentioned, for a home occupation to host events which might include weddings or parties. The property is located on Gunderson Road, and the property itself is about 5 acres in size. The zoning of this property is RRFF5, or Rural Residential Farm Forest, 5 acres. The applicants propose to host events for no more than 125 people per event. The events will take place in a proposed 4,000 or 3,500 square foot building. The building would include 2 restrooms, a staff prep room, and an open event space. This proposal was modified slightly with the applicant's most up-to-date application materials. You can see the full updated proposal in exhibit number 27, which has already been uploaded to the county's website. The proposal includes a gravel parking lot area, which would accommodate 48 vehicles, and a 6-foot cedar fence, which would surround most of the event area and the parking lot, as well as a cypress tree, I'm calling it a hedge, but a row of cypress trees that would surround some of the fenced area, which would be between the parking lot and the north property line and the parking lot and the east property line. I've included some maps here today for some orientation. So on our screen, we have the site plan that was provided by the applicant. This is oriented sideways, so north is to the right side of our screen, Gunderson Road being to the left side of our screen. The home I've circled here, the existing home I've circled here with the red circle, and their driveway access with the red arrow. And the event parking lot area I've highlighted in yellow, and the event parking lot area would be accessed by a different driveway that's existing. It is a shared driveway, which is located on the west property boundary, the west property boundary of this site. On this slide here, I've tried to highlight the location of the proposed 6-foot cedar fence with the blue dotted line. As you can see, it encircles almost the entire event area, which would include the event building and the event parking. As well as I've highlighted the green cypress tree row around the parking lot, providing a barrier between the eastern property boundary and the northern property boundary from that parking lot. And I've circled the proposed event building in red. This floor plan is generally what the applicant has proposed. In their written narrative, they did update that the washrooms here would be accessed from the interior of the building rather than the exterior of the building, which would help mitigate any noise from folks going in and out of the building constantly to access the washroom or congregating outside while they wait. But you can see the 2 restrooms, the event staff prep area, and then the majority of the structure being an open space. I will summarize only a portion of my staff recommendation. The full recommendation is available as exhibit number 28 on the county website. Ultimately, staff's recommending denial of the application, particularly due to 2 review criteria, one being related to the characteristics of the subject property and the other being related to the character of the neighborhood. So I will discuss those 2 issues today, as well as touch on one other review criteria that was found to be compliant, but just to provide a bit more context. Related to the characteristics of the subject property, staff is required to evaluate how suitable the proposed use is when we consider the size, the shape, the location, topography, natural features of the property. My analysis of this particular criteria has not wavered much since my initial staff report that was issued for our initial hearing, but again found that the size and the shape of the property are the limiting factors to find that this proposal is suitable at this site. The property itself is about 5 acres, and it's in very close proximity to neighboring properties, which are developed with residential homes and other accessory structures. Staff finds that the proposal will create significant impacts such as noise, traffic, or other visual impacts like lights. Additionally, the shape of the property, it being long and narrow, creates a barrier because the property itself is very close to neighboring properties. The narrow shape of the property means that the nearest dwelling on a neighboring property is only 200 feet from the event site. It also has a shared driveway access, which would provide the access to that event parking area near the back of this property. The applicant did propose to put the 6-foot-tall cedar fence around the parking lot, the cypress tree, hedge-style row around the perimeter of the parking lot as well, in order to help mitigate impacts that would be coming from vehicle headlights going to and from the property. And I do think that that will help tremendously. But ultimately, the size and the shape of this property are still two remaining factors that staff has found to be limiting and render this site not a suitable site for the proposed events. The next criteria that needs to be evaluated is whether or not the proposed use will alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner that would substantially limit, impair, or preclude the use of the surrounding properties for primary uses allowed. One point that I wrote about in my initial staff report, which still stands, is the shared driveway. The shared driveway that the event attendees would use to access the event building and the parking lot. There is an easement for that driveway, and it does speak about the financial responsibility of both property owners to maintain and upkeep this driveway. We can expect that the maintenance would be significantly increased by having 125 people per event coming and going and using that driveway. But I haven't seen any response or discussion about how the financial impact would be addressed, or how that financial responsibility would be shared for the upkeep of the driveway that evidently will have much more degradation over time than it would have if it were just used by a single family home. Lastly, the character of the surrounding area has not been assessed. It's the applicant's responsibility or burden of proof to provide evidence on how they comply with this criteria. They state that they won't alter the character of the surrounding area, but provide no description of what that character is, let alone how it won't be altered. Some of the public comments received so far have described the area as peaceful or quiet, but I haven't received any information from the applicant defining the character of the area, and that is their burden of proof. So for those reasons, staff found that this particular criteria had not been complied with. Lastly, I wanted to touch upon another review criteria regarding the fact that the event operator needs to reside full-time in the home that's on the property. Initially, when we first looked at this application, there was some uncertainty or lack of information about who's living there, who the event operator is, and whether those are the same folks. That since has been clarified with the applicant's updated proposal. And so staff has rewritten the staff addendum has addressed this particular criteria and found that it can be complied with. Ultimately, the property owners would be the event operators. They do not currently live on the property, but their intention is to move here if and only if this application is approved. So should the hearings officer approve this application, staff recommends a condition that be imposed to require them to provide evidence that they have moved here and they have elected this as their primary residence prior to them operating the events. We've received 17 public comments from 13 different groups or individuals. 16 of those public comments have been in opposition. Again, a complete report with findings is provided initially with Exhibit 1, which was my initial staff report, and has been amended as Exhibit number 28, which is my addendum to the staff report, which followed the applicant's updated application materials. Staff recommends denial of this application for the reasons that I've discussed today and addressed in Exhibit 28, the addendum to the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time if you have any.
Okay. I've got a few questions for staff. Just gotta look at the code now requires the average peak sound pressure of 60 decibels. What is that defined? Is that 50% of an hour? I think that's this definition, but I didn't see it in the code.
Yes, I don't believe that our code does define how that's measured, but there are the ANSI standards for how someone would go about measuring that decibel rating.
Your staff report recommends, if it's approved, that they provide a noise study prior to building permit. I think that would be needed prior to approval in order to demonstrate that it's feasible. So that's something for the applicant. Am I correct that the staff report found that event contractors, caterers, photographers, and such are not employees subject to the 5-person limitation? I thought the county had previously construed it the other way.
That is correct. In certain zoning districts, so in our natural resource zones, which would include the ag forest, exclusive farm use, and timber zoning districts, they are the photographers, florists, people of that nature are considered employees and are subject to that 5 staff member limitation. But it is not, that is not applicable for zoning districts such as this one in the RFF5.
Okay. The resource zone restrictions, is that in the county code or is that state law?
I would have to verify that for you.
Okay.
It's certainly in our county code.
Yeah, if it's in your county code, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, yeah, it's certainly in our zoning and development ordinance,
yeah,
but I'm sure
that's what I'm most, as long as I can track it down.
yeah.
They're proposing 2 restrooms in the building. I know restrooms are typically allowed in accessory buildings, but are 2 typically allowed, especially on a 5-acre parcel that's not being farmed? Is that?
We have allowed that in the past, yes.
Okay. And are 2 restrooms sufficient for 130 people, or are they proposing portables as well?
Maybe I can defer to the applicant on this one. I don't believe there were portable restrooms being proposed.
Okay. We'll let the applicant respond in a minute. I think I have a couple more questions for staff. I think most of these are for the applicant. That was all the questions I had for staff. So now it's the applicant's opportunity.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartels?
Yes.
Can you state your name and address and that you represent the applicant, all that?
Yeah, my name is Russ Bartels, 17285 Southeast 422nd Avenue. And I represent the applicant. I guess the 2 issues that the staff recommends denial are both very interpretive issues. So I'm not sure how much, I go into detail on those where there really matters with the characteristics of the 5 acres being the wrong size. So we feel that with a paved driveway, she mentioned the driveway, that driveway is actually going to be upgraded from gravel to paved. So by paving it should substantially reduce maintenance of that driveway, and we could totally take full responsibility of maintaining that driveway in a document with the shared easement participant if that was necessary, or we would probably do that anyway because that just is common courtesy if we were to get approved. to pave that driveway and to use the site. The surrounding characteristics of the neighborhood. In those neighborhoods, as I live in one of those neighborhoods, there's so much that goes into that versus, you got the guy next door that's a mechanic that has, basically a junkyard, and then you got people running chainsaws and lawnmowers and lawn equipment and tractors. And so as far as a peaceful neighborhood, I totally get that you're in a peaceful neighborhood in the country, but you still have noise and you still have general general things to deal with. So my thought is just that a wedding venue that's happening 3 to 5 hours in the evening, as long as like we're required to be done before 10. And if we were required a noise study and we were keeping it underneath the recommended guidelines, then I'm not sure that we don't believe that we would fall outside that characteristics of a neighborhood like that. So that's our side of interpretation of that part of the code. And sorry, we did not address it correctly in the application.
The applicant has the burden of proof, so you need to show me what the character of the area is. I mean, is it where the residences are, what intervening vegetation or structures might help what's going on in the area. I understand that
I'm sorry to interrupt, but so like characteristics by like mapping the area and
what the uses are. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more I'm sorry, they do this in multiple jurisdictions. I think it's Washington County that I'm thinking of, but state for agricultural EFU zone, they require a fairly extensive analysis. It's not, I don't think that's as much as that extensive an analysis is not required here, but let me describe what's going on in the area now. What's the character to the extent you can. Sorry, there was another issue. Of chainsaws and mowers. I understand that, but are those noise generating activities generally occurring until 10 p.m.? You are changing the evening character of the area, if you will, arguably.
Right. Those are normally morning activities.
Yeah, so that's another issue I'd like to hear more about.
Okay. So continue on the character of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you've got more testimony, go ahead, or if you want to respond, I can hold the record open to allow you to respond further.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll just hold the record open slightly to respond to the character of the neighborhood, so I can do a map of the existing size of the properties and what's on the properties and whether there's current businesses operating out of them, which the neighbor to the east currently has a business of vehicles going in and out of that road, and two businesses to the east, an auto sale and I think a beer distributors distributing beer directly to the east. So I will address those.
I thought in either the staff report, I think the addendum, it talks about the one of those two uses you just cited. I think it's the mechanic, that the county has an enforcement case against that's not a permitted use and it may be illegal and have to go away. So although it may be there, it's not part of the legal character of the area. So that's something I'd like you to address as well, if you can.
Okay. So just note it's there, but that it's not legal. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know that I can consider it as part of the character of the area if it's illegal and it has to be shut down. Is in the process of being shut down or altered. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the staff report says.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I will take care of it in that addendum.
Okay. As far as noise, you say that there's no outside events other than parking and access, and that the building will be insulated, but there's no evidence about the ambient noise levels in the area, which is one of the standards is 60 decibels or the ambient noise level can't be exceeded. So if the ambient noise is very low, that really limits how much noise you can generate. There's no evidence about what type of insulation is proposed. Will the doors be closed at all times? Limit on how long they can be open so people come in and out. If I'm speculating here, just to give you an example, if it's really loud inside, somebody opens the door for a short period, is that noise at the property line going to exceed state's maximum noise levels? I don't know off the top of my head what that maximum is in this residential area, but there's a standard in state law that I think would be reasonable to consider as far as whether it meets the standard for no impacts, not changing the character of the area. If it's really loud, even for a short period of time, I mean, really, then that probably wouldn't meet the standard. I understand you putting in a fence around the parking area, which will provide some buffer, but is that sufficient? Because it's just on a quick internet search, 60 decibels, which is the county standard. Normal conversations about 60 decibels. So, but he's in the parking lot talking loud, that could potentially exceed the standard.
So the noise standard for an event center wouldn't be the standard for just, so that, I guess I'm a little bit confused on the 60 decibel. That's just for event centers only, not for like regular neighborhoods.
Right.
Okay.
There are noise limits for neighborhoods as well. They change at between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. They're 10 decibels lower. This is off the top of my head, but there's a average. I think they have various levels for like 30 minutes. It can't exceed X decibels at the property line. 15 minutes, it can't exceed a higher level at the property line. And for very short periods, 2.5 minutes, I don't remember exactly what it is, out of an hour, it can't exceed a higher still decibel. So, allows fairly loud noise as long as it's real short term. But you can look at the DEQ state law DEQ regulations for what noise is for general residential areas. But the county code says it can't exceed an average decibels of 60 decibels, or the current ambient noise level in the area, whichever is lower, I think, is what the county code says.
Would that noise level be measured when cars are driving by, or when people are?
The county, I'm looking for it in the staff report, but the noise standard exempts vehicles entering and exiting the property are expressly exempt, and noise detectable on public rights of way and railroad rights of way are exempt. But from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., that may be what you're, I'm just looking. Okay, 80602J sub A says from 7 until 10 on Friday and Saturday until 9 p.m. on all other days of the week. The average peak sound pressure level, which is my understanding is 30 minutes out of an hour, measured at the property line, shall not exceed the greater of. Okay, so it's 60 decibels or the ambient noise level. So if I quoted that wrong previously, if the ambient noise level in the area is really low, you're limited to 60 decibels. If the ambient noise level in the area is greater than 60 decibels, you're limited to ambient noise level.
Yeah, I just need to figure out how long that ambient noise level is measured. Is it from like 6 a.m. till noon, an average of,
it's out at 30 minutes out of the hour is my understanding, is how that's most sound engineers define that term.
Right, but if someone's mowing their lawn next door in the hour you record it versus someone isn't, that's, how do you interpret that, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
It's what is occurring on this site. If the noise from the event can't exceed 60 decibels.
Or you said
Or if
an
somebody
ambient level. So if the ambient level, if your neighbor's a wood cutting operation or he's cutting wood all day, then you could actually, based on what you said, you could exceed the 60, correct? Because
if
your
that's
ambient would
occurring
be
all the
higher than
time, if that's a frequent, yeah. This
so,
is something
so
I'm gonna have to,
if I go out there and measure, that's what I'm wondering. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Of how that all would work is all I was asking.
yes, I understand. It says the average peak sound pressure level when measured off the subject property line. That's not defined in the county code. Generally, that is 30 minutes out of an hour. If it's somebody's cutting wood all day, on occasion, that doesn't necessarily may not be relevant. If it's occurring every single day, if it's occurring in the mornings but not in the evenings, there's two issues here. Are you meeting the unfortunately it's not defined. I'm going to have to interpret it. If you can give me some argument of how I should interpret it, great. Also, if noise generating activity, wood cutting, lawnmower, whatever is occurring, during normal hours, say till 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you're going until 10. So that relates to the character of the area standard. If it's generally, there's not a lot of noise and it's not exceeding 60 decibels in the evenings, that could have altered the character of the area. So those are some issues I want the applicant to address.
Right.
Provide me some argument on that.
I do have a question as far as like wedding venues. You meant noise studies, like when people are proposing to build new structures like we are, and you mentioned the 60 decibels. How would you go about doing a study if the structure's not built, I guess?
Well, sound engineers have all kinds of computer modeling.
Do it modeling. Gotcha.
Yeah. We got walls this thick, this particular type of insulation, this is the design of the building. They do it pretty easily.
Yep.
The fence is Ms. Lord, can you pull up your PowerPoint that shows the fence again? Is that accurate? I wasn't clear about where the fence is on the site plan I got. Her color illustration shows it very clearly, and I just want to make sure that that's correct.
Yeah, let me pull it open and then maybe Rusty can confirm, but I think I've got it pretty spot on here with the blue dotted line.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So just to kind of describe for the record, get my directions again. On the west side of the driveway, it's a stretch between the
that's to prevent light.
Yeah,
travel.
I understand. Okay. And then it does on the east side of the driveway, it does continue to the north boundary of the site.
Yes.
And then from the east side of the driveway to the east boundary of the site, along the south boundary to the south end of the event facility, then up to, okay. Right. As long as that's accurate, then I have something to review. I don't know. I'm trying to describe, there's a couple of lines I'm just curious about, let's put it that way. At the south portion of the drive of the parking area where you've got, I assume that's an entrance there for that southern row of parking stalls. There's a couple of lines there at the north end of the fence. Are those just measurements?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. The fence. Yeah. That makes sense that the fence doesn't extend because that's how you're getting into those parking spaces. So,
right. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because this is the first time I've seen this, this particular plan. I think that was all my questions, but let me look real quick. Portable restrooms. Are you planning to use portable restrooms or just the 2 restrooms in the building?
We're planning on the 2 restrooms in the building, but using portable restrooms is for sure an option if it was deemed necessary.
I don't know. It
But I
may
don't
be an
believe,
issue for the county sanitarian based on the capacity of the septic system if they.
yeah, it wasn't brought up on my attention, so we assume that we could meet it with the 2 restrooms as of now, but.
Okay. Oh, and then the driveway on the west side of the site, the shared driveway, you said you're going to pave it. Is it still going to be 15 feet wide? Will that allow?
I think it calls for 20 feet wide. 20.
The code, the staff and the conditions require 20 feet at the
Yep.
at Gunderson Road intersection, set back. I think it's 20 feet back from the road. It doesn't require it the whole way.
Yeah, we would do 20 all the way to the parking lot.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Right. That's all the questions I had at this point. Anything else from the applicant at this point?
I don't think so at this point. No, thank you.
Does anybody else want to testify in support of the application? Please raise your hand at this point by clicking on the raise your hand button. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. Who'd like to go first to testify in opposition or with questions or concerns? Please raise your hand. Okay, I have Michelle. You're muted at the moment. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Good morning.
There we go.
Hi. So first of all, I just wanted to let you know I'm in a meeting with about 15 other people, so there may be other people in the room that might want to have some questions, but I have a question.
Before you, can I get
sorry.
your name and address? And the other people in the meeting, if they want to testify, that's great. If they can do it one at a time, give me your name, their name and address. And just so we have.
Okay, perfect.
everything we
I'm
need.
Michelle Way, and I'm at address 34777 Southeast Gunderson Road,
And how do you spell your last name?
WAY.
Thank you. I had 2 options.
Yeah,
you.
exactly. So couple concerns. If they pave the driveway, we share the water. We have the shared well with them.
Mhm.
And
Are you also sharing the driveway, or are you?
No, we do not have
Okay.
the driveway, but our water line does run across that driveway. So if they pave it and we're responsible for that line, if something was ever to happen, are we going to be responsible for repaving if we have to dig up our line?
That's something I'll ask the applicant to address. I'm assuming they would agree to take that responsibility, but I don't know, and it's something I'll have to.
Okay.
I'll let them respond.
And then also just to clarify, the properties to the east. So there is a gentleman that has a rum business, but he actually tried to run his business off of his property, and the county actually ended up denying him. So his business is actually up in Sandy off of Reuben. He does not have, he does distillery there, but to my knowledge, it is not a business storefront, nor does he have employees there. He actually rented a place up in Sandy for his rum business.
Okay.
Okay, and again, that's something probably to clarify, but that's to my knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what I had. Anybody else?
I have something.
You say your name.
And your name, sir?
I am Kevin Way, 34777 Gunderson Road, WAY. My concern is the limited sight distance from their driveway onto Gunderson Road. If you look from the west, I exhibit 26A is a video I shot from the driveway looking west. Gunderson Road is a rural road, obviously, with no posted speed limit, which makes it default to 55 miles an hour. So if you look at that video I shot, and per the NHTSA website, which is National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, if you're traveling
Before, let me tell you what I've seen as well. The county engineers reviewed the site distance and determined that it is feasible to meet the site distance requirement by clearing vegetation. I did see your video. It does show
okay, I think
a drop there, but your video is also to the you're standing quite a bit east of the driveway, it appears, so it
Negative.
accentuates the hill.
Negative, I am not. I'm standing on the edge of the driveway, and I believe that was concerned from 362nd to Gunderson. I'm talking right from the driveway on Gunderson.
Okay,
From
I'm gonna,
the applicant's address there.
thank you. Let me, I just want to get all my notes correct. So you said you're standing on the east, but yeah, east side of the driveway when you're in your video?
I'm basically standing on the road.
Yeah.
With our property line from their driveway looking west.
Yep.
So coming up the hill.
Okay.
At 55, according to the NHTSA website, you travel 120 feet before you have time to react to any kind of object, your reaction time. So and I measured from that driveway to that hill, and it's 120 feet. So I'm not sure exactly how much further you're going to need, but it's pretty dangerous. I just needed to add that just to clarify.
What did you measure, and how did you measure it?
I have a 100-foot tape.
Yeah, no, I mean, what was it you measured? 120 feet from the driveway to where?
To the edge of the crown of the crest of the hill for the limited side distance. Yeah. Because our property is
just a second, I got to get my note, and then I
oh, sorry.
that's okay. You're doing fine. Crest of hill. The site distance is generally measured at a height of 3.5 feet above the roadway. So was your measurement at the surface of the roadway? I just trying to clarify, understand what I'm on your testimony.
I actually was just holding it in front of me, probably chest level. So it's probably 5 feet high. If I went down to 3 feet, it'd be even less.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's about it.
Anybody?
else?
Yeah, I got a question. My name is Marty Stinson. I live at 34625 Gunderson Road.
And can you spell both of your names? I'm not sure. Marty, M-A-R-T-Y?
Yes.
And
S-T-I-N-S-O-N.
S-T-N-S-O-N?
S-T-I-N-S-O-N.
S-T-I-N. Thank you, sir. Glad I asked.
I'm not sure that if this has been addressed or not, but when you pave an area and you build a parking lot and you build a building, it creates an impervious surface. And so there's going to be a lot more runoff. How are they controlling the runoff for people downstream below that? It has to
The applicant will be required to get a permit from the county and demonstrate how they will do that. Either this county has specific standards for treatment from pollution generating surfaces and for detention, holding the water so you don't increase the rate of runoff. There's specific standards. There is if it exceeds a certain area, I'm not sure off the top of my head what those are. But if this was approved, I would impose a condition of approval that they can obtain approval from the county, demonstrating that it meets the county's requirements. But it would be feasible to do that. Detention is relatively, from an engineering standpoint, if you will, relatively simple. They can put tanks or a pond or something to control that runoff and treat it.
I got one more concern is everybody out there is on a well.
Mm-hmm.
You put 150 people on one septic tank. Is that going to pollute the groundwater?
Oops, sorry. Let me finish my note. This is what you just said, so I don't forget when I get to my writing the decision. If you're concerned about groundwater contamination I understand. The applicant would be required to get a permit from the county sanitarian for the septic system. And they would consider that issue if the county sanitarian determines that there isn't sufficient capacity or sufficient capacity can't be provided by expanding the septic system. They would deny that permit. The applicant would then need to provide portable restrooms, which are allowed, but they might need to revise the application, get further county approval of a revised application demonstrating where those restrooms are and that they meet the county standards for placement of those. They have to be screened and set back, I believe. So in summary, they will be, if this is approved, they would be required to demonstrate that it won't result in groundwater contamination by meeting the county standards for septic disposal, or provide alternative means of restrooms, but that they meet the standards for portables. Anybody else want to say anything? That's in this wherever Michelle is, Ms. Way is.
Yes, Bob DeVore has something he'd like to say.
Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Bob DeVere. I live at 348-73. Behind where the bush is gonna be.
I'm sorry, are you east or west or of the site?
348-73,
Uh-huh.
Southeast Gunderson.
I understand. Do you know if you're east or west though?
To the north.
No,
North? Okay.
He's looking at the driveway.
Thank you, sir.
Driveway.
Mr. DeVere, how do you spell your last name? Do I get it right?
Devere.
Thank you. I did get it right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Since the last gentleman talked about the water problem, possibly, we have a spring going across that road. Especially when it rains.
The shared driveway that serves your property on this site?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm the guy that shares that road. Right in the middle where they've got the proposed septic tank. Right there when it rains bad, we have
Give me
a,
a second. I'm looking at their site plan. So their septic,
yeah, right in
the
there.
proposed septic or the existing septic that serves the house?
Now they've got an approved septic tank. That's right.
So it's just, the approved septic tank appears to be just north of the house. Existing, it says existing metal septic tank. And then there's another one. Sorry, it's fairly small print. There's a future septic tank proposed just east of their future barn for events. I'm not
Yeah,
sure which one you're talking about.
Right in there, there's a spring that's been there.
I understand, but
Forever.
I'm sorry, Mr. DeVere.
and it
I'm trying
rains-
to, Mr. DeVere, just a moment. Sorry. I'm trying to understand where this spring is. Can you, and I missed what you said there. Can you tell me again?
It's approximately where that new septic tank approval is. And
Okay,
then
so where their
across the
future
road.
barn is as well. So it's kind of in the northern portion of the site where their event facility is.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Now I'm with you. Go ahead.
and then it runs across the road. When it rains like it has,
And the spring is on this site?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If you
Go
went
ahead.
out there right now, it's pumping water.
Yep.
And if it,
And the concern is that if when they pave it, that they need to accommodate, what's the concern?
well, it pumps water and it goes across that road.
Uh-huh.
And if it takes too much traffic, it tear the road up through there.
Okay,
That's why I've always driven at 5 miles an hour on that road to keep it up. And then I have another concern about the noise of that barn. I think it's gonna be too noisy. I have a wind problem now since they clear cut it. And I've had, the wind goes through there and has torn my roof apart on the barn, and I've had to have the well house replaced.
but how is the wind relevant to the impacts of this approval? Of this
I guess
proposal?
nothing, but I'm just saying,
Okay,
and the noise. Let's see, the noise is just, the bass music is is what bothers everybody. The
Mhm.
music actually is just fine. It's just the bass is just horrible. You know, all of us are old now. Well, I am. I used to love going to the bars and stuff. And the bass, I don't remember it being so damn heavy. But
Mhm.
this music is, their bass is actually hurtful. It's so loud.
Okay.
And I guess that's what everybody's actually dislikes. It's not I guess it's not the content, it's just the hurtful volume of it that everybody's go.
I understand.
And I think that the taking all the clear cutting area has caused most of the noise to get out of our little area and go down the valley behind us. And the noise travels down the other way. What is down to Sandy Farms area?
In order to meet the
So-
approval criteria, they have to limit noise to a maximum of 60 decibels at the property line.
Right. That's not.
So-
gonna happen.
If they were capable of complying with that, then it would
Tractors.
should eliminate that issue especially the further travel. But I
Tractors
understand
and-
the concern at this point.
Tractors and chainsaws are nowhere near as noisy as this stuff is.
Thanks, sir.
I guess that's about all. I should just shut up and let you get on with it.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. DeVere.
Okay.
Is there anybody else with this way who'd like to testify?
I got one more thing.
Is
Kevin,
Mr. DeVere again?
Kevin Way,
Mr. Way, okay.
777 Gunderson Road. So I know that in their new proposal, they have this 3,000 gallon water tank.
Mhm.
So who would enforce that? What's to keep them from putting their garden hose on our shared well into that tank? I mean, who's gonna monitor that? Is there gonna be some kind of meter? I mean, how, honor system? Cause that probably will not work that way. You know, that's our main concern also. I mean, it sounds all nice and good on paper, but in reality, I mean, it'd be awfully tempting just to run the garden hose in there and fill it up, which would be total violation of our well agreement. So, yeah, they're already violating it, but that's another story.
Okay, yeah, that's not something, the other story isn't something I can. consider.
Exactly.
But I understand the concern. The trucks would be pretty obvious though, if they're not coming up there. The
Well, who, and if
report
they
to the
violate,
county-
we can enforce it. That's
the
what-
county, it has an enforcement section just for that purpose.
Okay.
And
Yeah, but how long is it gonna take you to enforce it?
yeah, the county, worst case, the county can revoke their permit if they're not complying with the conditions of approval, if it gets approved. So I understand the concern and I will try and address it in my decision.
All right, thank you.
You know,
And the applicant will have the opportunity to address it as well before we close the record. Anybody else with Ms. Way? You'd like to say something?
Anybody else?
this is Robert, this is Bob DeVere again.
Okay,
I like Chris, he's a nice guy, but he went about this the wrong way.
I understand.
Some other things have happened out here that we won't go into. I feel like a rat to tell you this, but he's told me that his wife doesn't want to live out here anymore because of it. So,
Well, that's their choice. And if they're not living on the property, they can't operate the facility. So it would be violate the conditions of, if it was approved. That is clearly a requirement of the code. So it couldn't be, they wouldn't be allowed to do that. But if they change their mind and decide not to operate this or live out here, that's up to them.
like I say, I really like the guy, but
I understand, but it's not something I can take into consideration. So, thank you, Mr. DeVere. One last time, anybody else at Ms. Way's house?
Yeah, I have something.
And your name, sir?
My name is Chuck Schmidt. I live on Gunderson Road, 35810, Southeast Gunderson Road.
Mhm.
And I live about approximately a half a mile prior to the site that's being proposed here. One of my biggest concerns is the amount of the, I guess you could say, the quality of people that's going to be coming through there. I mean, it's going to be bringing in people that's never been down our road before. We're not talking about people, conditions that was 30 years ago, are the type of people that's running around out there now is a little bit different. But it's just, there's probably not going to be any vetting or anything like that for the people that's signing up for this. Is that correct?
I'll let the applicant address that issue. But the county doesn't vet people, no.
Let him answer it. I guess he's on.
Are they gonna have bartenders?
And one at a time? Yeah, you want to.
And I'm sorry, who's testifying? I need everybody to state their name if you come back.
Well, I'm just kind of curious.
Okay, who's speaking?
I'm just kind of curious, is there going to be any kind of vetting or anything like that? Is there going to be any responsibility on your part, Mr. Bartels? That
Is this Mr.
somebody
Schmidt that's speaking?
intoxicated runs into somebody's property?
He's no needed.
Yeah, I'll give the applicant a chance to respond to all the issues that have been raised. And that issue has been raised. But is this Mr. Schmidt who was speaking? I'm not clear who's speaking.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Okay, and that issue has been raised, and I'll give the applicant a chance to respond. Okay, is that it from Ms. Wade's site?
I have a question.
Wait, 2 more.
We have 2 more.
Okay, and your name, ma'am?
Deborah Becker, 34225 Southeast Gunderson Road. And I want to know how they're going to fill that 3,000 gallon tank with a truck. Are they going to be running on my right of way?
Where is your driveway in relation to the site?
Next to the 3,000 gallon water tank.
On the east side.
The east.
Unless they had permission to drive on your driveway, an easement or other legal access, no. They have to use their legal access, either the driveway serving the
So
site,
that means
likely
that means that right of way isn't going to be used at all for anything.
When you say the right of way, is it a driveway or is it a public street?
It's not a public street, it's an easement.
If the easement allows access to this site, then they may have the legal right to do that.
It didn't allow access to this site until they made their access to their site.
Okay, that's a legal issue that any easement that affects the driveway you're talking about. I don't have the authority to interpret the meaning of that easement. If they choose to use that easement to access the site to fill that water tank, and you feel that your easement that exceeds the scope of the easement, you have the right to bring a legal proceeding against them, to sue them, to stop them from doing that. It's not something.
In other words, they can do whatever they damn well please.
They can do what the law allows, what their easement agreement allows. If they have the right to use that easement, and then they have the right to use that easement.
They don't have a right to use that easement. It is for access to our other piece of property.
If they don't have a legal right.
That lives straight back on that easement, and the place that has the rum.
That there's no evidence in the record right now that they have any easement access to that, to the driveway on the east of the site. The only evidence is that they have legal access on the west via that shared driveway, and that's what they would have to use unless they have other legal access.
Be coming in on my road.
Anybody else?
So
Anybody else?
Anybody else have anything?
I think we're good here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Way, can you click on the raise your hand button so your hand goes down and go ahead and mute yourself again? Is there anybody else who'd like to testify in opposition or with questions or concerns? If so, please raise your hand at this point. I am not seeing any raised hands, but I'm pausing just to give everybody a chance to find it. Okay, not seeing anything further from county staff.
No, I don't think I have anything to add. I think some points of clarification that perhaps you've already touched on hearing the public testimony. The site distance comment about the speed being 55 miles per hour because it's not posted. Our development engineering department did review that, deemed that Gunderson Road is a rural local roadway. So when there's no posted speed limit, it's assumed the speed is 35 miles per hour. They then took that 35 miles per hour speed limit and assessed that a minimum of 205 feet of sight distance would be required. And again, if the application were proposed, conditions were recommended to require compliance with that 205-foot sight distance. The question about impervious surface, I believe the parking area that's proposed is gravel, which my understanding is that's not considered impervious. However, with that said, a development permit still required for this application. And so the Clackamas County Development Engineering Department is the surface water management authority for the site. And so they will be reviewing the application and they will make sure that any runoff or mitigation for that impervious surface is being addressed if required. And then lastly, the septic permit and water contamination question, Mr. Turner did address this already. The Clackamas County on-site wastewater and septic team is I'm not sure if the term is an agent of the state, but they work on behalf of DEQ in reviewing septic permits. And so they, if the application is approved, the applicant would be required to apply for a permit, and they then evaluate the feasibility of that septic system with a proposal and soil type and soil quality and all of the things necessary to have a safe and successful septic system for the use that's being proposed. So
Okay.
that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Lord. Ms. Bartels, anything further from the applicant at this point?
I don't think so.
Okay. You wanted me to hold the record open. How long would you like to do that? Given it's a holiday, and y'all, if I hold the record open, you'll need to extend the 150-day clock for that. That's what I'll have to do is hold the record open for the applicant for a certain period of time to submit new testimony and evidence. I'll hold it open for an additional time for the public to respond to your testimony and evidence. And then I'll hold it open for an additional period for the applicant to submit a final written argument. So you'd need to extend the 150-day clock to accommodate all those three deadlines or extensions, if you will.
And Mr. Turner, if I may,
Mhm.
we are currently on day 71 of the 150-day clock.
It expires on January 6th, I thought, based on the prior extensions.
I can
That's
revise that. After the first initial hearing, the applicant did toll the 150-day
Okay,
clock.
I think that may be from a carryover
Okay.
from last hearing on my note.
The clock was told for the 156, pardon me, for 56 days.
Okay.
And so our active review time on the 150-day clock is 71 of those.
Day 70. Today is day 71.
Today is day 71.
Okay,
Yep.
so we've got time, is what you're saying. Good, thank you. Appreciate the heads up. Mr. Bartels, how long would you like me to hold the record open?
Like I said, with the holidays, maybe this 2 weeks into January.
I'm grabbing my calendar so I can make
Okay.
sure we're on the same page. Oops, I need January.
Probably any time in mid to end January would be fine.
Second week of January would be the 11th, it'd be a Thursday, or the 18th. You know, it's
18th.
The 18th, okay, I'd be willing to do that, given the holiday and everything else. So that would be 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Then I would hold open the record again, given this extensive open record I've given the applicant. I'm going to hold it out for 2 weeks for the public until February 1st. And I'm writing a note at the same time, so I don't forget what I say. And then I would give the applicant until an additional week until February 8th to submit a final written argument without any new evidence, unless you want a longer period.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so it's February 8th. And then I would issue my decision within 2 weeks after that, which would be February 22nd. Ms. Lord, are we still within February 22nd, still within the 150 days?
I'll double check once more, but I believe that would put us
Thank
at
you.
141 out of 150. So that should be all right.
Thank
To
you.
give me a moment.
I can't do the math that quick in my head.
And it was February, sorry, you said
January 18th, the final would be February 8th, and then I would issue my decision by right, the page. The 22nd of February.
Okay, the 22nd. Yep, that's fine. The 22nd of February puts us at day 141.
Great. Thank you. With that, I'm going to close the hearing. I'm going to hold the record open for the applicant to submit, anybody who wants to submit any new testimony and evidence until the 18th of January 2024. And then I will hold it open until February 1st for anyone to respond to whatever was submitted during that first open record. And then I will hold it open until February 8th of 2024 for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. Anything anybody wants to submit has to be physically received by the county by what time? 4 p.m. Thank you. Anything anybody wants to submit has to be physically received by the county by 4 p.m. So if you're mailing it, be sure and get it regular mail, send it in early, allow for delays. Also, if you're emailing, get it in early. Ms. Lord, will the county put the new exhibits onto the county website so people can review them?
Yes, we will.
Okay, so anybody after the close of the initial open record, you can go to the county website, review whatever was submitted, and then you can decide whether you want to submit a response. Any responses have to be received by 4 p.m. on the 1st of February, and then the applicant's final by February 8th. I will try and get my decision out by the February 22nd. As I said, I will send my decision to the county. The county will send it to parties of record. So anybody who has testified orally or in writing, or who does so during the open record, or who provides their name and address to the county requesting a copy of the decision, will be sure and receive a copy when it's issued. That concludes our hearing. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon and happy holidays.